Hoi hoi folks, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Sean, aka Uncle Frogface, and welcome to today's video. If you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. And welcome to one of the last videos of the year. I think there's only one or two more left after this. But with it being close to the festive season, I wanted to do something a little bit special. So last year, if you'll remember, quite an early video of mine, I made a prop replica from the movie Krampus. I made one of his little bells that he carries around and gifts to people. And it's honestly has become one of my favourite Christmas movies. I mean, I love horror movies, I love Christmas movies, and this just combines the both perfectly. WETA Workshops, who created all of the props and the characters for this movie, are just sensational. So, this year I wanted to make another decoration for our Christmas tree inspired by that movie. And the idea that I had was a very particular scene in the movie where someone gets tricked by a gingerbread man on a chain. So I drew up a couple of sketches, I had a couple of reference images, and then I just cracked out the polymer clay and got to work. And this is what happened. So as I said, this is polymer clay. This is just standard super Sculpey. It's not the hard Sculpey, it's not the soft, it's just the regular kind. And all I wanted to do here is just get a general body and head shape. So I'm just kind of squishing it around. I've already been playing with it a bit and conditioning it, so it's already the consistency of kind of chewing gum. So I've found, one thing I've really found useful is that I've got a lot of tools that I use with polymer clay, but actually if I'm smoothing stuff out, and here I am picking out a bunch of cat hairs from the clay, thank you very much Tinkerbell, but if I'm smoothing stuff out, then the silicone tools are really good, but actually so's the back of your fingernail, or the back of your thumbnail, really nice. I'm also not using any liquid Sculpey on this to glue it together, because this is all wet on wet, so it should stick just fine. But I've got my body shape, I've now got some basic little arms, and I'm going to do the same for the legs. Just roll out a little sausage and cut off the ends so it's nice and neat, and stick it on. There we are, and that really is the base for our gingerbread man. So with this guy, I wanted to give him a little bit more of a kind of a muzzle for his mouth. I've also found with this, when you're sculpting things, if you do it how you think it needs to be, then it's probably not going to be enough. If you over-exaggerate things, it stands out much more. You'll really see that when we come to the eyebrows later, and I'll point that out again. But I'm going to give him a bit of a tummy as well. So these gingerbread man in the movie, they are living creatures, and I wanted to portray that really with this character here. So once we've got his tummy, once we've got his muzzle, now it's just time to stick on the arms and legs. And as I say, this is kind of wet clay on wet clay, well, as wet as polymer clay is. And I'm just sticking them on and just blending them in, and that should, once it's baked, be absolutely fine to hold this all together. As you can see, I've kind of got all of the pieces into place now, and this is where I was saying about the eyebrows. So they have kind of these little eyebrow ridges that gives them really expressive faces, gives them quite mean faces. So I knew that I was going to be blending this in, so I just went overboard. I made them bigger than I thought they were gonna ever have to be, and that actually was just about the right size for them. So if you're ever sculpting something and you want something to kind of be a certain size, sculpt it bigger, and it will usually look best. They also have these little thumbs as well, little opposable thumbs, so I'm just blending those on exactly the same way, just little balls of clay, popping them where they need to be and blending in the edges. So now I've got kind of the base body and figure done, I wanted to smooth everything out before I stuck on any more details, and I just used a cheap brush, and this is baby oil. Baby oil is fantastic for smoothing out clay, so is isopropyl alcohol, but I'm using the oil today, and the brush just kept molting and having hairs stick all over it, so I just went in with my finger and smoothed it all out. And here we are, all smoothed out, and time to add on some details. First thing I want to do is his eyes. So I've just got two small balls of clay, rolled them out, flattened them out into little discs, and then just pop them where I want them to be. Now on top of these discs, I want 2 smaller discs for the irises of his eyes as well. So I'm just doing exactly the same thing, just with slightly smaller bits of clay. He's also got little pink cheeks as well, so I'm sculpting those on exactly the same way. And then finally, for his unhappy mouth, I've just got a little snake of clay, and I'm putting it on into the position I want. This ended up being a little bit too big, so in just a second you can see I'm going to peel it off, cut it down just slightly, and put it back again where I want it. And because everything's still wet, that's absolutely fine. Just blending in the edges and get a horrible little unhappy mouth sculpted on. Last detail to be sculpted. I can't believe this. It's been literally minutes and the sculpt is nearly finished. Last thing I need to do is just his little buttons on the front. And these again are done exactly the same way as the cheeks and the eyes. They're just circles, flattened out, put on. And I'm just going in at the end, just making sure everything's exactly how I want it. And then cutting a big chunk out of his head. So this is just to make it like he's had a bite taken out the side of his head. And I'm going over with a ball stylus and just dotting all over to give a nice baked texture. And then a slightly smaller stylus as well, just to vary it up and give a little bit of variety in the texture. Not forgetting the inside of the gingerbread where it's been bitten away. So there's still some hairs in there, but that's fine. Once it's baked and painted, you'll never know. Except if you've watched this video, and then of course you know, but don't tell anyone. Last thing I want to sculpt is the hook for what will be the end of this decoration. And I've just rolled out a snake of clay, again, made sure it comes to a point at one end, cut it off, make a hole in one of the ends and flatten it out slightly, give it a little bit of texture with a ball stylus, and this all goes off to bake. And here we are, baked, all hard, done. That is the sculpting part, finished, and now we're on to painting already. So I've got some burnt umber and a little bit of white, because white makes things stand out very nicely on polymer clay, gives it a little bit more opacity. And I'm just going to paint this whole gingerbread man in this colour, just a nice base coat. Make sure I get all the nooks and crannies. And then when he is dry, we are left with this, and I'm coming in with the same colour, exactly the same colour, just a little bit more white. I'm coming in and very dry brush, going over the top. And all of that texture work we do, this is where it pays off, and it makes that texture really pop. Of course, not forgetting the hook. I want to give this a nice base colour of silver as well, so I've got this cheap metallic acrylic paint. I'm just going to give the whole thing a coat of silver paint. Now everything is dried, the base layers, I'm coming in and starting on some of the details. White first for the eyes, for both eyes, and for the buttons down the front as well. And not going to lie, this took a couple of coats because my paints are cheap. As I say every time, I don't really buy anything expensive. This is just the bog standard cheap acrylic paints. So I want to dirty up this hook, so I've got just some water with a little bit of black and some of the same colour we use for the gingerbread man actually, just as a wash. Giving that a good wash with that, and now I've dropped in the whole chain part of this decoration to dirty that as well, because it was much too shiny. I'm just going to let that dry out and look really dirty and sooty. More details. We've got those little pink cheeks. I love these tiny paintbrushes. These are the same ones that I use for the miniature master studies as well, on those little 2x2.5 inch canvases. I've not done for a while actually. I need to get another one of those out very soon. Probably New Year. And red, of course, for his lips. Bright red lips, pink cheeks, got white buttons, whites of the eyes. think there's only one more detail left to paint on this little guy, and that is his actual iris colour, which is green in the movies. So I'm doing exactly the same here, bright green eyes. Ah, yes, there is a final detail, and it's this little frosting detail around his the bottom of his legs and around his wrists, which I attempted in polymer clay, didn't like it, so I thought I'd just paint it on instead. And here's everything drying, waiting for final assembly. So final assembly, we've got our chain, we've got our hook, we've got our gingerbread man, and down here I've just got a little loop, and I'm gonna gently thread this onto the hook. And it's very difficult to do this when you're looking at the camera rather than what you're actually doing. So I attempt again to try and thread this on, and then did it off camera because it was just too fiddly to do. So I'm just wrapping the chain around and then kind of creating this little loop in the back. And this is how the decoration will look, but I want to make sure it's secure. So I've just got a matchstick with a little bit of super glue on. And this is the very last of this gel glue that I've got, which I'm glad of because it's not good, and I will definitely be investing in some better glue. And now we are at the end and we are fully completed, and here is our little gingerbread man, bite taken out of his head, on a hook, ready to capture any unsuspecting bad children. I think Krampus would be proud of this. I've even gone ahead and made a little loop in the chain at the top. There we are, so it can hang on the Christmas tree. But there we are, this is now our Christmas decoration, and we'll be going up on our tree. Let's get a nice close-up of him. Those two eyes are terrifying. And that hook is just, yeah, would not want to get on the wrong end of this. If you haven't seen the movie, I thoroughly recommend it. But I really hope you've enjoyed this. I really enjoyed making this. This was a lot of fun for me. And as I say, this is one of the last videos of the year, and maybe one or two more to come. So I wish you all a very Merry Christmas. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and until next time, goodbye.